Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to do some gameplay and commentary for the Companion Poison Shred build. First off, I want to mention that I'm running the Gillian's Brew here, and that is from the seasonal event. 15% maximum life and lucky hit chance are very strong for this particular build. I'm going to go ahead and open up a tier 5, which is a farm difficulty at this point, which is where most people are going to be playing the majority of the time if they're farming glyph experience. You can of course push higher. I just want to showcase something that people are going to run regularly, talk about some of the strategies and thought process that I use while going through the rift. And I apologize if I don't talk the whole time. It does require some focus to play this type of build. And there's a lot of people that aren't fully comfortable with this and just really dislike this style of build the first time they experience it. Get so turned off they never want to try it again. So I used Debilitating Roar there before I engaged the mobs, even knowing that they wouldn't all get hit. And the reason for that is because I have damage reduction built into that. We have just getting additional damage reduction from shifting into bear form, and we need that. We want to make sure that we aren't getting instantly blown up. And I'm actually happy that I got this particular rift because I find that poison is one of the most difficult affixes for mobs to have when you're going through. So I'm going to have to be really careful in my gameplay to not go down to that. And also I just need to have smart positioning to not get exploded at any point during the rift either. So again, I've gone a period of time and I could shred to a mob or I can pop that Debilitating Roar. I just want to make sure I have some sort of reduction up before I engage. I don't necessarily need to clear this whole pack, but I also don't want a ton of ranged mobs following me around, because they'll just eventually build up and have the potential to take me down. Ideally, I want to get these mobs grouped a little bit closer together, so I'm just kind of circling around strategically, not necessarily in a straight line, but just moving in such a manner that I'm able to avoid projectiles as best as possible and get them to kind of close in on each other in such a manner that I can then kind of shred through the pack and get progress on the bar without wasting too much time. So just shredding here to get damage reduction in the form of armor. Not so interested in killing all those mobs behind me. At this point I do want to take out this elite pack, but I'd like to get a little bit more with it. And I want to take out a big clump here before I move forward. And I'll talk about that in a second, but I want to get through this pack before I do so. And I'm going to pop Earthen Bulwark there. That's just to shift my character into human form, which we can then get shape-shifting benefit from our skill tree. So just keep that in mind. You want to be shifting frequently. So the reason I wanted to kill those mobs is I don't want to fight them on this area. This is a small, narrow area, and it's really bad for Poison Shred. In fact, I don't even want to fight right there. I have no problem dealing with those mobs. It just needs to be kind of on my own terms. And you may find that in various maps. This one, for the most part, is pretty open with the exception of those kind of bridge pathways. So I want to point that out while we're there. Again, just popping Earthen Bulwark to shift. Poison Creeper will also shift you, and of course Debilitating Roar will shift you. All of these are going to give you large benefit to the damage you're doing to the mobs. So ideally you cast a skill, then hit shred, and kind of repeat the process. At this point you've probably noticed I have not used the Ravens or the Wolves. Those are basically just on the bar for their passive buffs. Very rarely do I actually use those active abilities, but the Poison Creeper of course is getting used. Trying to get past that frozen. Can of course use Earthen Bulwark or the Evade to give yourself unstoppable. And same thing here, just kind of whittling the pack down, trying to draw everything into a tight spot while maintaining this kind of shifting pattern and continually kind of just moving, not necessarily randomly, but strategically, what may be called orb walking, excuse me, if you're familiar with that term, or just the way you may move to avoid attacks or dodge in other types of games like MOBAs and things of that extent. Very popular strategy for PvP games, and if you're not familiar with it, you'll pick it up pretty quickly. The idea is to just never walk in a straight line, just kind of zigzag, but not necessarily aimlessly, just avoiding what you see coming, but to never go in the same path for too long a period of time. Otherwise, you may get hit by some of these projectiles, essentially just dodging and increasing your survivability, and it does work against PvE mobs as well. I don't like that tight spot, so I'm going to try to pull everything out in this direction, deal with this damage reduction mob, and get myself just in a more favorable spot. Now, of course, saving a shrine for a boss would be more favorable. I'm going to grab this one because Blast Wave, although still very strong, this particular build doesn't linger on a target for too long. So you don't get a ton of value from Blast Wave unless you time it to an extent where you essentially dash in at the appropriate moment when that Blast Wave explodes, as seen there. But that can be difficult against the Guardians, right? Because they're dealing so much damage and you're trying to avoid so much coming your way. A lot easier to showcase that in this particular setup where I'm fighting against these trash mobs. Protection Shrine, very good, so that one is worth saving. We'll go ahead and just clear the rest of these mobs. Again, I want to just deal with what I can. Not a huge fan of being by that bridge, and I don't want to go down this late in the rift. Just a couple mobs and get stuck on the corner there, even though I have those unstoppables within the build. Protection is a great way to showcase the fight with the Guardian, just because you can see exactly how much damage you can do to these. Let's go ahead and get them grouped up. Again, just using the same concepts. Wait for all of these to come together, and then we're just going to start applying poison by dashing through them with Evade, getting our Poison Creeper, and literally just blowing them up that quickly. So you would want to play safer if you don't have the Protection Shrine, of course, and that can involve pulling the Guardians one by one. Hopefully everybody's familiar with that concept by now, but if not, I'll add a clip for that right after this. So the Guardians have just spawned, and I'm running away from them. I've got no Shrine active in this time. You see they're spawned down here, and I'm safely up towards the northeast. Now I still want to fight these in a fairly wide open spot, but all I'm going to do is essentially tiptoe toward them, and I should be able to pull them one at a time, even though they're pretty close together. Just need to make sure that I move as little as possible. The most dangerous part of this is going to be when they first initiate. If they have anything that spawns directly under me, I need to make sure that I'm immediately moving. You see, like a Shock Lance is probably the least deadly of those, but I know that that mob is pulled at this point, and I've successfully got them pulled one at a time. So I'm going to go a little bit further away, and again, they could still have something else. I haven't seen the affixes. This should be far enough, but I want to pop my Debilitating Roar, get that damage reduction up, and at this point I'm just going to dot them with poison, and make sure that I'm shifting and essentially dash back into them. One other thing I'd like to cover is the reason that I'm always moving away and then dashing back into the target has to do with Shred. You're only going to get some of these multiplicative damage bonuses on the second and third attack from Shred when it actually dashes or lunges towards the target. That's also the reason that we take part of the talent tree that we do as well, which is what makes this particular talent, the Primal Shred, much more favorable, because now our second and third attack perform the dash. Last thing I'd like to mention is just get to rank 3 of the seasonal event as well, the Midwinter's Blight, and that's because you're going to get these Midwinter Nightmare spoils, and they're going to have additional fragments within them, and every time you clear one of these tier A or Z rifts, you're going to get these. So this is just an easy way to kind of work towards those cosmetics, or even get those potions that I mentioned, just some of the other supplies that are there, and it prevents you from needing to go out and farm those separately. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.